these today already, but I'm sure you're going to enjoy this pear and ginger cake that we're all going to make together. And if you're watching this and it's Easter morning, then you can make this cake. You can make this live along with me if you like. And remember, if I go a bit too fast for you, you can always pause this live and you can then just catch up and then you can just start it again. So you're actually in control of this video. And we're making a pear and ginger cake. Now, I'm in the UK and I chose pears because pears are still in season and there's no soft fruit coming through. There's no strawberries or plums or apricots coming through yet. And so I chose pear and ginger because it's so good for the digestion. And I love that flavor. And the two together are delicious. So that's what I'm going to show you how to make today. And we're going to make it together. So I'm going to begin with kind of the dry ingredients. And I'm going to make up flour with nuts. I've got a whole load of mixed nuts here with extra pistachio nuts because I think pistachio nuts are gorgeous in the pear and ginger cake. But I bought a bag of mixed nuts because, in fact, in the UK, they're much better value than buying individual bags of different nuts. And so I've got 250 grams of mixed nuts here. And I'm going to put that into my blender. Now, if you've bought ready ground flour like almond meal or almond flour, that's fine. This cake will be really delicious with that. But I'm just popping the nuts into my blender. Go. There's a few escapees. And that's 250 grams of nuts. Okay. And I'm just simply going to grind them until they make a kind of like they come to a flour consistency. So there we go. That's all it is. And you do it for as long as you like. Now, my blender always gets a little bit stuck down the bottom. And so over here at the top end of the nuts, there's some that are still a little bit in bits and not flour texture. That is absolutely fine. We don't need perfection in this cake because you've got pear in this cake, bits of ginger in this cake. And so it won't matter that there's a few bits of nuts. All right, so I'm going to put this mixed nuts with added extra pistachios in to my mixing bowl. I'm just going to get some of these nuts that got stuck down here. You have to be careful that you don't blend it too long because then you start to make nut butter and then you actually get a kind of like a bit of a paste. But there we are. The reason it's kind of a little bit more green than normal is because I did add extra pistachios because I quite like that color and taste. So that's the start. So now you've got what I'm calling nut flour, but it's a slightly coarse. And I'm just breaking up any blobby bits here. Now, why am I using nuts? I'm using nuts because nuts contain protein. They contain lovely anti inflammatory oils and they contain fiber. And they make a really fantastic moist cake. So you're already on a winner with this cake from a health perspective. So here we are. Right. Now, if I used all nuts, I find the cake's quite dense. So I make up a little bit of actual flour using a grain. And for me, I'm using oats, but you can use wheat, you can use buckwheat, you can use whatever you like. But I'm putting about 50 grams of flour in here. I think I may weigh that out just to make sure I follow the recipe. Okay, just hang on. Just getting my weighing scales. Here we go. So let's weigh that out. And of course, you don't have to wash your blender at all before you weigh this out because it's all going in the one cake. Right. So here we are 50 grams of flour. Now, if you've got some flour in your house, by all means, use that flour. But I need to be gluten free because my gut gets really sore if I eat gluten. And so I play around with different flours that are naturally gluten free. And oats are naturally gluten free. But if you're a celiac, you need to buy oats that are labeled as being gluten free because sometimes there's traces of wheat in the oats. And you could use buckwheat flour. As I say, you can use anything you like. Now, I'm just going to make these oats into flour here. There we go. Pop that out the way. Right, here we go. That is all it takes to make your own flour at home. There we go. And why am I using oats? Not just because for me, they are nice and on my tummy, but I'm using oats here because oats contain really lovely fiber, soluble and insoluble. And it's that lovely soluble fiber I want more of, beta glucan and things like that, that have been researched actually to help, in fact, lower cholesterol. But that's depending on how much oats you eat, of course. But also, that soluble fiber makes up a lovely kind of gloopy texture in your guts, in your food that you're digesting. And that's good. And I want that because that's great for my gut microbes. Right. So now we've got a bit of flour, oat flour, and ground up nuts to make into flour. And I mean, that's already looking just so delicious as far as I'm concerned. Okay. Next, we're going to add in a little bit of sugar. I do add sugar into this cake because the cake, to me, wouldn't be a cake without some level of sweetness. But I add a lot less sugar than most commercial cakes. So I add about 75 grams of sugar. Now, that's only makes the cake faintly sweet, but we're adding in pear as well. So you taste the cake mixture before you bake it and you decide if it's just not sweet enough for you. And if it's not, then add some more. But 75 grams is what I'm adding. And I've just got some golden caster sugar here. Golden simply means the sugar hasn't been bleached. So that's what I'm using. Sometimes I use a lovely dark sugar in this, just makes it more caramelizey or stickier, the cake. And that's a nice texture. Sometimes, I'm using coconut sugar as well. And that's good. And that works really well. Okay, that's 75 grams of sugar. And I'm adding just a teaspoon or a heaped teaspoon of baking powder. And if you like a dense cake, then don't use the baking powder, but it really is very dense if you don't use it. So that's a heaped teaspoon of baking powder going in there. All right, so here we go. We've really built it up now with our dry ingredients, a few little blobs of, there we go, of nut flour that is kind of sticking together. Mmm, good. So I'm going to crack some eggs in now, and I'm using 3 eggs. If you can't eat eggs or don't want to eat eggs, then I suggest for every egg you add 1 tablespoon of ground up flaxseed or psyllium husk powder. And you need to add a little bit of extra water. So for every tablespoon, so for every egg, you add 1 tablespoon of psyllium husk powder or ground flaxseed, and you add 1 tablespoon of water instead of the egg. So if you're using 3 eggs, like I am, then you want to use 3 tablespoons of ground flaxseed or psyllium husk fiber and 3 tablespoons of water mixed into this cake. All right. Okay, so that's eggs. I'm not even bothering to whip them up because when I start mixing the cake mixture, they are going to just homogenize in anyway. And then I want about 80 grams of olive oil. Now, I cook with extra virgin olive oil. It's quite safe to heat it up, and I cook with it. And so I prefer it to melted butter in this cake. But that's completely up to you. I just know that the extra virgin olive oil is super healthy for me. And I actually buy it in bulk. And that way it's not so expensive. All right. So I'm just measuring out 85 grams, or about 80 grams actually, or 80 mils of extra virgin olive oil. Now, honestly, you don't taste it. There's no bitterness that goes into this cake with that extra virgin olive oil, but there's so much goodness. It's fantastic. All right, that's good. That's looking good here. And I am going to mix all this together. And if your mixture's a little bit thick and not loose, this is okay. Can you see how that's a bit loose? Say you've used psyllium husk powder instead, add a little bit more water. I could even add a tablespoon of water to this to loosen it if I wanted to, just a little bit. Actually, maybe I'll do that. And that won't negatively affect the cake at all. There we go. There's 1 tablespoon of water popping in. Yum. There's your base cake. And actually, you can add whatever you like to it. I'm adding pears and I'm adding fresh ginger. If you were using dried, I'm adding about 6 teaspoons of fresh ginger because I want to taste the ginger. And I think that's quite important that if you're bothering to add ginger and you're calling it a ginger cake, that it tastes really gingery. That's me anyway. That's what I like. I'm just making sure there's no soil on that. Pop that out the way and let's grate up some ginger here. So ginger is just so stimulating to your digestion. It's really good. Your gut microbes love it. I love the taste. And also it contains some fiber, but also the polyphenols in ginger are just really good. There's some called ginger rolls, and they have anti-inflammatory effects in the body. There we go. And let's see, how are we going? I want about 6 teaspoons. Just just mix this up. And I just grate it with the skin on. As long as there's no soil or dirt stuck to the ginger, then it's perfectly all right. The skin, you can eat the skin. It's not a problem with it. Just try not to grate my fingers at the same time. But I might chop up these end knobs of ginger and I might use them just in some tea or something. Here we go. All right, I reckon that's roughly 6 teaspoons of ginger. Pop that into the mixture. Lovely. All right. And give that a bit of a mix through. I hope you're going okay along with me. All right, now I'm going to get some pears. So I don't know how many pears you would prefer in this and what size your pears are and how ripe they are. But I think these are reasonably big pears. So I think I'm going to use maybe 3 of them. I'll try and tell you what weight that is before I start cutting them. Here we go. Let's turn that on. So that is altogether just over 500 grams of pear there, and they're quite ripe. One of them is a little bit kind of a little bit sort of overripe on the side. That's perfect for a cake. So I'm going to cut them up now. When you cut them up, I'm just going to cut out that little bit that's a little bit kind of rotten, just there. There we are. And when you cut them up, you can cut them into chunks, you can peel them and then cut them into slivers. There is literally no right or wrong for this cake. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to save the tops slightly. Here we are, like that. Now you'll see later why, because I want to sort of just display them in the cake, that top there, and then oh no, that one's a bit broken, so I probably won't use it. And the rest of the pear, I'm just going to quarter up, take out the core, and just I'm going to roughly chop it because I'm just going to mix it straight into the cake and not have it as a display on the top. But you could mix some pear into the cake, and you could also slither up some pear on the top and kind of line up on the top or in a circle, and that would be quite pretty. But I'm going to do it this way today. Or maybe I might show you the 2 ways in a minute. Go, and there's a bit of pear there, just roughly chopped. Now, why also am I choosing pear? Apart from the fact that it's in season here in the UK, pear is just the most, I think it's the most gorgeous fruit. And it is really high in fiber, naturally high in fiber. And even if you were to peel them, it's still got really good fiber in its flesh. So that's why I'm using them. And they've got their own set of polyphenols in them, which is really good. Now, polyphenols, you may be wondering, well, hang on a second. Emma keeps mentioning this funny word, polyphenols. And what on earth are those? Well, polyphenols are naturally occurring chemicals in all plant food. And what they do is they protect the plant, or maybe they give the plant some color. A typical one you might know of is in blueberries, for example, or all berries actually, but in blueberries, that really dark color is actually a polyphenol called anthocyanin. And so, what research has shown us is these polyphenols have beneficial effects on our gut microbes and us humans. And it's like they have anti inflammatory effects in a really good way. So, that's good. Our gut microbes love them. They kind of digest them or eat them, and they give off their own set of chemicals in return that are have anti-inflammatory effects, not just around the gut, but throughout the body, which is really good. Now I'm putting this chopped pear uh, into my cake mixture, and this is the last thing you need to do. Oh, I'm mixing that through. Great. There we are. Really, it's a lovely, it's not too sloppy a batter, but it's a batter. It's not so stiff that it doesn't just move around on your spoon like that. Now, I'm using two little cake tins. I've made a larger cake, which I'm going to show you, but I'm using two little ones today, and I just need to get them sticky on the outside. So I'm just getting a bit of that oil and I'm lining them with baking paper or parchment paper because this cake mixture can stick even to the side of a non-stick pan. There you go. All right. Let me just move that out the way. Okay. So I am going to just pop some baking paper on that. So I've got a sheet of baking paper here. I just might halve it actually. I don't need that big sheet for each one. And then I'm going to fold that in half and then fold it in half again and then fold it again. Here we go. So I start making a little kind of triangle and then again. Do you see that? There we are. I'll show you again because I'll do it for the second cake tin. And then I'm cutting it. I'm putting the little pointy end of the triangle in the center of the cake tin and then just cutting that off. And that way you've got a circle. There you go. And in it goes. And take the rest of the baking paper and cut it so it's like a straight line. And then we'll put that into probably too tall actually. So I'll cut it in half. Right, there we go. And stick that to the wall of your cake tin. Okay. All right. Too big. Just about sticking. Okay, so there's one. I'll just quickly do up the other one. In half, that sheet of paper, and in half again. Okay, and then you take that pointy end there, and then you fold it over like it's a triangle, and you fold it over again. This is how I always line a cake tin. And then this pointy end goes into the center of your base circle shape. And then you cut it off and you've got a circle. There we go. To the shape or size you want. Now, if I was making this in a loaf tin, I would still line it, but I wouldn't obviously use this method because there's no circle. But it works. It works really well when you've got a circular cake tin of any size. Sticking on the sides. And we're ready to rock and roll. Get that cake into the oven. Nope, it's not, doesn't want to stick. Here we go. Just going to need a little bit more. Great. A little bit more oil on the side. There. So I'll show you two things, two ways I do it. One way is I might stick the pear, the tip with the stalk on, into the middle of the tin. And then I would actually put the cake mixture around it. Making sure I don't catch any of the paper away from the side at the same time. I think actually I'm going to use a spoon to do this, it'll be easier. Now I want this to be quite a tall cake. So I'm going to fill this tin up almost to the top, making sure it gets snugly around the pear, because the pear itself, of course, will cook in the oven. If you've got pear that's a bit underripe, then you can always just cut the pear into, say, quarters and pop it in the oven and roast it for maybe in a medium heated oven, probably for roasting it just for like 10 minutes. And that will pre soften the pear. Okay. Now, once this is baked, mm, oh, once this is baked, I will show you on my social media what it looks like with the pear still sticking out at the top. But that's what I'm going to do. And that size cake with that thickness probably might even take up to 25 minutes or 20 minutes to cook. Stick a cake prong in to test it. But that's one. Oh, that batter is absolutely delicious because I've got a little bit of a kick of the ginger coming through and a hint of sweetness. But do check your batter and check that you're okay with the low sweetness level that's in this cake. And then I've actually thought about how I'm going to do the second one to show you. I'm not going to stick a pear in this time. Now, this cake mixture easily fills up one 20 centimeter round cake tin. I'm using two baby ones today, but you would actually you could easily fill up a round. Now, I could put some slices on top, or I could even put some extra pistachios on top or something like that. But maybe I'll do some slices and line them up along the top. And then maybe once the cake's cooked and out of the oven, I might even glaze it. Let's do that like that, just like that instead. And perhaps I might have done it in circles. You get creative with how you'd like to display it. But I'm going to put those two in the oven. And after about 20 minutes, my oven set on 180 degrees fan forced, so quite hot. And after about 20 minutes, I'm just going to stick a cake prong in there and see if it's cooked. I'll just pop them in the oven and then I'm going to show you one that I cooked up yesterday, which is all ready to go. Let me just pop these in the oven, first of all. Just going to put them on a tray in the oven, just in case they rise up over the top, because I filled the cake tin really full. But I don't think they will. There we go. Okay. So let me show you this one that I made earlier. Here we go. So this is making it as a whole cake. And this is 20 centimeter cake tin. And this time in this one, I didn't have as many pistachios and I actually used dark brown sugar. So it's slightly different look in its color, but it works really, really well. Okay. Now this, of course, is cooled. So that's how come I can touch it. Let's just get it out. All right, nice. Okay. And what am I going to do? So you can decorate it any way you like. Because it's Easter Day here, I was thinking, because there's some pistachios in and things like that, I thought I would grind up some pistachios and I would use them to kind of make this kind of pretty circle. A girlfriend of mine did this a few years ago, and I thought, oh, that's such a clever idea. So I'm taking a few pistachios and I'm going to put them into the blender. It's making sure there's not too much oat flour still left in the blender. Just cleaning that out a second. Okay. And I'm just going to grind them up. So they go a little bit like coarse flour. There we go. They don't have to be perfect. There can be chunks in there. It's not a problem. I mean, look at that natural color of those pistachios. Beautiful. And then I thought, and this is why I put it on this to capture any nuts that fall through. I'm just going to make a ring around the outside, just a very natural looking ring. And this is what she did. And so I thought, oh, that looks so festive and Eastery and beautiful. Here we go. There we are. And then, because it's Easter, I'm popping a chocolate bunny on top here. There we go. And there is my family's Easter cake for today. Pear and ginger cake, full of fiber and goodness, lots of goodness. And I really hope you enjoy making it and eating it.